What's up, you guys? Welcome to Walk the Line. We're talking some PFL action here as Francis Ngannou makes his return to MMA. He's taking on Renan Ferreira. This is the battle of the giants here. I got a lot of messages from you guys asking me if I was going to do a video for this fight card. And I thought that this was a fight card that was definitely deserving of me hopping on the mic. You're talking about the ex-UFC heavyweight champion who never lost his belt. Obviously, there's a lot of extracurricular things going on outside of him just fighting in MMA in Francis Ngannou. But you got to put some respect on his name. This is a huge fight. Renan Ferreira is a dangerous fighter as well. Besides that, you got Cris Cyborg fighting in the co-main event against a fighter in Larissa Pacheco, who is a very accomplished fighter, one of the most accomplished women's mixed martial artists that's not fighting in the UFC. And then you got Johnny Eblen taking on the brother of Leon Edwards, Fabian Edwards. That's a rematch there. Johnny Eblen is one of the best middleweight fighters on planet Earth, not just fighting over in PFL Tour or whatever you want to call it, right? Because that's one thing I got to say too, man. They need to clean that up because Johnny Eblen is currently the Bellator champion. I believe he's defending the belt here, but he's fighting under the PFL. They really need to figure out what they're doing over there. They need to refine how they're labeling these titles and whatnot. It's a little confusing even for us diehard fight fans, if you ask me. And I know we could dive into it and we know what's going on, but just make it a little bit easier on the eyes and just figure out what's going on over there, guys. But Johnny Eblen is a fighter that we probably will be seeing fight in the UFC down the line. He's still undefeated. He's 15-0. McKee is taking on Paul Hughes. Paul Hughes was is a top prospect in the fight game. The UFC wasn't able to get their hands on him. He was fighting over in Cage Warriors. He's a former champ. We recently talked about him when we were breaking down that Jordan Vucenic fight where he made his UFC debut, and Vucenic, a promising fighter as well, and he battled with Paul Hughes a couple times. So we were talking about Paul Hughes there. A little unfortunate the UFC didn't get their grasps on him. We'll see where his career goes. He's 12-1 as a pro, and he's still just 27 years old. And McKee is a major step up in competition. Besides that, you got Raufeon Stots taking on Marcus Breno. Raufeon Stots, 20-2 as a pro, has a lengthy and accomplished MMA career, but he's getting up there in age. He's almost 36 years old. Recently took a devastating knockout loss to Pacheco. He did rebound with a victory in his last fight over Danny Sabatello. You guys know they had a lot of bad blood, and we'll briefly talk about that fight. Some of the lines on these fights are very steep. We'll talk about where we could find some value and method of victory and all that. So we'll make this one a nice, sharp, clear, and concise video for you guys. And I'll let you guys know real quick before we jump into the first fight, if you want to work with me as far as my official plays go, reach out to me, whether it's a DM on Instagram or Twitter. I got those listed below. I'm on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _, on Twitter at the MMA Teller. Shoot me a message. I'll give you further details there, or you could even email me. I got my email scrolling below, and I'll give you further details. We very well may have action locked in for this card. We got big action locked up for UFC Vegas 99. We're going to have huge action locked in for UFC 308. I just finished recording that whole episode, and that's a great card that I'm going to just be going crazy. I may have more units out for that card than I've had out in about 2 years. Okay, so just note that if you want to work with me for my official plays for any of these MMA events that are taking place, reach out to me there. And the last thing I will say to you guys is we are powered by BetUS. If you guys are looking to sign up to a new sportsbook, reach out to me. Let me give you my referral link. You sign up through that link, I'm going to give you a special gift as well, and you're going to get a 150% match bonus for your first 3 deposits. All right, guys? Reach out to me, and I will give you further details there.
The Teller.
So I just want to quickly brush upon this fight because unfortunately, this is a fight where we have another huge favorite on the card. But Raufeon Stots is taking on Marcus Breno, fight taking place in the bantamweight division. Stots is a fighter that is deserving of us to mention his fight, the former Bellator champion. He's recently known for his bad blood with Danny Sabatello. He went 2-0 on Sabatello. That first fight was close. They went to a split decision, but he definitely took that last one, and that's the end of that. And I think Danny Sabatello has since retired from MMA after slipping on the banana peel and going to a draw in his last fight. And I'll say this real quick. Dana White made the right decision by not signing Sabatello from Dana White's Contender Series. He talked a big game. He never really delivered in the cage. So I had enough of that character there. But we do have to mention the Juan Archuleta KO that Stots had back in 2022. That was a huge victory for him. Archuleta, a very respectable opponent. And Stots is a fighter that hasn't really had that many knockouts throughout his career, just 3. He's a fighter that really thrives on using his wrestling and grappling. He's a good athlete. He is 35 years old now. And this youngster, Marcus Breno, is a talented striker. If Breno can somehow keep this fight standing and be able to display his striking, I think that he is live to potentially hurt Stots there. Stots could hurt him as well. Stots could hold his own on his feet, but that's where Stots can possibly face some danger. I don't think that Breno is going to be able to keep this fight there. I think Stots is going to have his way with the grappling. Breno was just submitted by, speak of the devil, Danny Sabatello. Danny Sabatello caught him in that rear naked choke. Before that, he did have a victory over Josh Hale, a somewhat respected veteran throughout the years as Hale and fighting out of Canada. And he got that victory there. That was a nice little step up in competition and a victory for Breno. I don't see him being able to keep this fight standing. You just got to note, though, you're going to see some strides from Breno, being 26 years old. And his other loss that he had, besides the Sabatello loss, was a Taylor Lapilus decision loss that took place over in Aries. Lapilus is a good fighter. He's having a lot of success in the UFC. Just had a victory in that UFC Paris card and went to a decision there with Lapilus. But you should expect to see some growth from Breno, but not enough growth here, I don't believe, to be able to keep this fight standing long enough to showcase the striking that he has. I think that Stots gets him down, could submit him as well, could potentially pull off a sub, but maybe just grinds him out and uses ground and pound to kind of just dominate the fight. You take a look at the betting line. Like I mentioned, Stots is a big-time favorite. Opened up as a minus 450. He's touched a minus 750, and now he is currently a minus 600. So he's a 6-1 favorite currently. I don't see any value on this line, even though I'm talking about how he could use his wrestling to get this fight down on the mat and dominate or control this fight. You got to be careful, man. This youngster can take some leaps, and I'm not willing to chalk up 6-1 odds here in a fighter in Stots who just was brutally knocked out. So that chin is impaired, right? That patchy mixed KO was brutal. If he gets touched like that again, he can go out. So I don't see any value. I'm not necessarily steering any of you guys towards taking the dog there. Maybe you're taking Stots via decision. Maybe that's the route you want to go there. But I don't recommend you guys throw big action on Stots on the money line and parlay that up with something. I think that you just kind of, there's no real value on that. Here we go. Kicking off the 5-fight main card. This may be my most anticipated fight of the event. AJ McKee Jr. taking on Paul Hughes. This is a major step up in competition for Paul Hughes, but Paul has looked to be a very promising prospect coming from the Cage Warrior scene, the former champ there. You can argue that he still should be undefeated. His one loss came by way of Jordan Vucinic. That was a split decision loss that he then got redemption about 3 fights later. Some notable victories that he has. He has a victory over Morgan Charrier. He also is coming off of a TKO finish over Bobby King. That was on the Bellator Champions Series where he was raining some nasty ground and pound there at the end of the second round. Got the stoppage with just 10 seconds left in the fight. Now, I really do believe that Paul Hughes is a legitimate prospect. I mean, he's still just 27 years old. There's a lot of room for growth. And as far as the Cage Warrior scene goes, I'm not too high on it, as a lot of you guys know. I think that he's one of the few legitimate prospects that have came from Cage Warriors. But this is a step up in competition, man. AJ McKee is the real deal. You have to understand that McKee is a career mixed martial artist, right? He is the son of former UFC fighter. I mean, if you want to go there, I mean, he was just 0-1 in the UFC, only fought once. Took a loss there against Jacob Volkman, just kind of grinded out there. But you still got to respect his father, Antonio McKee. He was kind of just a crafty veteran that fought all around the world and just has a world of knowledge in the sport of MMA. And he obviously was teaching his son AJ that from a very young age. Besides that, McKee was heavy in the wrestling scene in high school. He's a solid athlete. If you guys remember, there was these MMA shows back in the day on YouTube where they try to get something going, and you always saw McKee hanging around on this show with his skateboard when he was just a young kid, and the show was based off his father, right? He was just a young kid. I mean, that's where I remember seeing AJ McKee when he was just 11, 12 years old. I mean, that's how long I've been around this sport, if you guys didn't know, man. But from then to now, you got to feel that there's a bright future on the horizon for McKee because he still hasn't cracked that 30 mark just yet. He's 22-1 as a pro. His lone loss was when he lost that rematch against one of the greatest fighters to ever fight over in Bellator, and Patricio Pitbull, one of the greatest fighters to ever fight outside the UFC. He lost a 5-round decision there. Before that, he pulled off that first-round submission. Some people feel that was a little bit of a fluke, but I mean, you can't really say that, man. I mean, he went out there, he got the job done, had a first-round submission over Darian Caldwell before that. He comes into this fight on a 4-fight winning streak, coming off a first-round submission of Clay Collard. So he is dangerous with the subs. He's dangerous there, and that could potentially be an avenue for him to go down. I think that he could have a grappling. I think he will have a grappling advantage against Hughes. Even though Hughes has shown growth there, you got to feel that AJ McKee has the overall advantage with the grappling, specifically with his wrestling. That's where I really feel he can actually get the better of Hughes. On the feet, he's going to have about a 3-inch reach advantage, Will McKee, but Paul Hughes is slick there, man, and Paul Hughes is more technical with his striking. So you got to understand that. McKee, he's a raw athlete still, and even though he's been around the fight game for so long, I think that he still has flaws in his striking. Now, he's long and he's athletic, but he leaves himself out there at times, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Hughes can touch him up a little bit standing. I like what I've seen from him there. When you mix the whole recipe up, though, I just think that AJ McKee is the more complete mixed martial artist. I think he has the advantage in his grappling with the submission threat and the wrestling, and I like AJ McKee to get the job done here. I think this is just a little bit of too much of a jump for Paul Hughes as he steps onto the big scene here, right? Leaving the regional scene of Cage Warriors and all that. This is a big step up, in my opinion. And you guys know, for those of you guys that have been following me for a long time, you guys know that I've been backing AJ McKee for a long time. I've always been very big on those second generation type of fighters. I think that's so huge when you have a fighter that grows up in a household where his father was an ex-UFC fighter or just a major MMA fighter at that. You're learning the game from a very young age, and it's different. It's different. So AJ McKee opened up as a minus 245 on BetUS. He's now minus 185. So that line's been coming down. If you like AJ McKee here, you like to see that. You're getting more of a bargain line, in my opinion. I like McKee. I really like what I've seen from Hughes, but I like McKee. Anything under minus 200, 2-1 and down, I think there's some value on that as well. I'm going to quickly gloss over this fight because Husein Kadimagomaev is a huge favorite over Zafar Mohsen. We'll just talk about the real question is he going to get the finish or not? I think that's more of the legitimate question with this matchup. Right now on BetUS, Husein is a minus 1,200. He opened up as a minus 600 as well. So major line movement, even with him opening up that high. So there's some serious confidence, some serious money coming in on him. Listen, when you're talking Kadimagomaev, you got to talk about his grappling. That's what he's all about. He's constantly shooting takedowns. He'll grind you out down there, and he'll really break you too. He'll get a sub or TKO on you down on the mat. I mean, you take a look at his 11 victories, and we're talking 10 of them coming by way of finish. He's only gone to a decision one time. Zafar has been finished twice out of his 3 losses, and I just haven't been that impressed with what I've seen from him in general. Anyway, I think you got to go Husein Kadimagomaev to win the fight, of course, but now, I'm going to say that he finds the finish. I'm going to say he pushes the pace. He's just 25 years old. It seems that the PFL likes him, putting him on a showcase spot like this, right? I mean, I didn't even expect his fight to really be here when I was just kind of glossing over the card a while ago. So he's on the main card, and I think the PFL likes him, and there's a reason why all this action came in on him. I'm going to back him as far as getting that finish against Zafar Mohsen, who's also shown deficiencies in his takedown defense and grappling. So there's a perfect recipe for Husein to get that finish. Also note, Husein is the larger fighter here too. He's going to have about a 3-inch reach advantage. He's about 3 inches taller. He just has a larger frame. He could use that grappling to find a finish. We got a rematch here between Johnny Eblen and Fabian Edwards. Edwards, the brother of Leon. If you guys didn't see their first fight, head over to YouTube. They got the full fight on there, and that fight was nasty, man. Johnny Eblen eventually cracked Fabian with a big shot, followed him down to the mat, landed some nasty ground and pound, finished him up. The referee was trying to get in between them, and that didn't stop Eblen from towering over him, barking all over him as he was not necessarily unconscious, but pretty close to him, and he was weathered, man. Fabian Edwards took some serious damage in that fight. Since that loss, the PFL believes he's done enough to get a rematch with Eblen. Just one victory since then. He has a victory over Aaron Jeffrey. Now, Aaron Jeffrey is a respectable fighter. He's been having a lot of success outside of the UFC. Remember, he fought on Dana White's Contender Series twice. You talk about getting some tough matchmaking. Took that first L against creeping up on top 5 middleweight fighter before just getting this loss here in Brendan Allen, where he was subbed there. Strung off some victories, even had a victory against Andre Petrosky over in LFA, and then they matched him up with Caio Bahailo. So, I mean, that's some real tough matchmaking for Jeffrey, just to brush upon that, but Jeffrey's a good fighter. So that is a solid victory that Edwards has under his belt going into this rematch. But I'll tell you what, I see this fight playing out similar than the last one, and the fact that I just expect that Johnny Eblen is going to be leading the dance here. I'm not sure if it's going to play out exactly in the sense that he's going to crack Edwards with a big shot, follow him down to the mat with ground and pound. It may play out in a variety of ways. I wouldn't even be surprised if Eblen has more success with his wrestling and grappling overall and tries to work in some ground and pound, just getting some slams and getting some takedowns and then eventually doing damage down there in that avenue rather than cracking him with the shot and then going down to the mat. I believe Johnny is going to be a dangerous man when he steps into the cage. Remember, he was being talked about as being the greatest middleweight fighter on planet Earth currently, right? That's not really the case anymore, especially for the way that he fought in the Impa Ngannou fight. That was a fight that was very close. It went to a split decision. I thought he was deserving of getting the nod, but he felt a lot of adversity throughout that fight. Impa's the real deal, though. But when you're comparing him to Dricus du Plessis, obviously DDP proving himself on a much larger stage against fighters that are just proven to be way more elite than the Impas of the world. I mean, going out there and doing what he just did against Israel Adesanya, I mean, DDP is a stud. I know that Eblen wants to be talked about in that light once again, and I think that he knows it starts with going out there, getting another finish over Fabian Edwards, and there's the bad blood going into this fight anyway. I think that Eblen comes out hot. I think that there's a very high pace in this fight. Now, if you want to play devil's advocate, we have to talk about the fact that Johnny Eblen was touched up a little bit against Impa when that fight kicked off, right? And Johnny Eblen is a fighter that relies on his chin a little bit too much at times. He's overly confident in his chin because it's granite, right? He's obviously never been finished because he's never even taken an L. He's still 15-0. He has a granite chin. But when you take shots like that with these small gloves and obviously the limbs that have no gloves on them, you get a shin touching your chin or your jaw, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for you. Or even an elbow, because Fabian Edwards slips in these elbows very nicely. He actually cut Eblen open with an elbow in that first fight. You got to be careful because there is a possibility that Johnny Eblen can get knocked out in this fight. And when these fighters that are so durable throughout the years, they push through damage, eventually it catches up with them. I think that Eblen would be smart to be a little careful playing in that type of scenario for too long. I think that he should push with the wrestling, which Edwards is working on that aspect of his game as well, but I think Eblen can break him down there. It's a 5-round fight. He should go to the grappling heavy from the beginning and look to get him down in the mat and just rain down that nasty ground and pound that he has. I'm going to say Eblen gets him out of there regardless. How about that? I'm going to say he gets that finish once again. I think there's going to be a high pace in this fight. Eblen opened up at a minus 650 favorite. He's now a minus 350 favorite. So that line came way down. It's understandable to an extent because that 650 was way too up there. Fabian's a growing fighter. And we just talked about how Eblen showed to be human in that fight against Impa. He was facing some real adversity, but you have to love the way he pushed through it. I like Eblen to win this fight for sure. And do I see value in the minus 350 line? You know, it keeps coming down. I think we're talking about possible value on the money line in Eblen. And you also want to keep an eye on the TKO KO prop for him to get a finish in this fight as well. Which right now, Eblen to win inside the distance is right around even odds. For him to get a KO/TKO, it's right around plus 275. So maybe some value on those lines there. We got the women's featherweight championship of the world on the line as Cyborg makes her return to the cage after dabbling over in the boxing world. She's taking on Larissa Pacheco. Now, interestingly enough, right, Cyborg, the co-main event, setting up Francis Ngannou's return from boxing as well. Two major names in the MMA world that went over to that sport, the sport of boxing. Obviously, they're making their money, but don't get it twisted. When it comes to fighting, they can both fight. And we'll talk about Ngannou in a second here. But these are MMA fighters. A lot of people are thinking that, oh, Cris Cyborg is just a striker. She's just a boxer. No, she knows how to do a little bit of it all. I understand that she's 39 years old, and that's one question you could have about her, but she's a proven fighter. She's 27-2 as a pro. She's put in the work for a long time, and she has great takedown defense. She's always showcased to have great takedown defense. I mean, she's a specimen. She's very physically imposing, and this is a matchup that kind of favors her to an extent too, because Larissa Pacheco is a fighter. She had a boxing background as she came into the sport of MMA. So understand that she's a fighter that favors her boxing skills. I mean, she's gone out there and looked amazing with her striking as of recently. She's had a couple knockout victories. Two of her last three fights, she hit some nasty knockouts in. She's coming off that decision victory, but she's been putting it in on these girls on the feet. She's sharp there, man. Go watch some of the tape of her recent fights, and trust me when I tell you, she's moving very sharp on the feet. I'm very interested to see how she matches up with Cyborg there, because Cyborg, her power is just ridiculous. But then again, she's 39 years old. Is she still carrying that power over to the cage? It looks like she's still carrying that power, even over with the big gloves on. She just knocked out both of her opponents within the first 2 rounds. You go back to her last MMA fight that took place in 2023 against Ngannou. She didn't let Kat get out of the first round, got the KO on her there. I mean, she's something else, man. All Cyborg has done is win fights. I mean, you take a look at the resume. Yes, she lost her professional debut way back in 2005, but after that, it was just an onslaught of victories. Of course, really kicked off by her victory over Gina Carano, because Carano was a polarizing figure at the time. She went in there, brutalized her, took the belt from her in the first round. Everybody kind of knew who Cyborg was at that time, or at least us hardcore fans did. Her only other loss throughout the years, dating to that Amanda Nunes loss where she chose to sit in a firefight and she got caught in the first round, and Nunes is possibly the greatest women's fighter of all time. Besides that, she had one Muay Thai loss to Joanna Bars, which you got to give Cyborg credit for going over to that world and having some early success in that fight, but even just being willing to go in there and fight a fighter like that, you got to give her credit. But besides that, it's just been all W's for Cyborg. I could run through her resume all day. She always rises to the occasion. And I'll tell you what, I think she goes out there and gets the job done one more time. She's 39 years old. She's pushing it, but looks to be in good shape going into this fight. I think that Pacheco is going to entertain a striking affair, and I'm going to say Cyborg can catch her with the big strike, or even if she doesn't get the finish, I think that Cyborg can still get the better of some of those striking exchanges. It's a 5-round fight, which I don't know, maybe that favors Pacheco. I'm kind of back and forth on that. We'll see what kind of shape Cyborg comes in, being up in age, but I'm also wondering what the drug testing is like and whatnot. I mean, that's just something you got to keep an eye on. Just see how Cyborg looks on the scales. If she looks to be ripped up and in phenomenal shape, I think you really got to be worried if you're for Pacheco, because Cyborg is a threat. And even though she hasn't fought MMA so much throughout the years, still being active in the boxing world, her hands are going to be sharper than ever. And I think that she could stuff the takedowns of Pacheco, who is also shown to be a decently well-rounded fighter. You guys know Pacheco. She's battle-tested. She did lose to Macy Chiasson on The Ultimate Fighter back in the day and fell short of ever starting that UFC career off. But she's fought Kayla Harrison 3 times, right? She lost twice to her early on, and then she just took a victory against Kayla Harrison, the only fighter to ever defeat Kayla Harrison. She took that unanimous decision. I will say I'm going to take the dog here. I am going to take the dog here. I've always been a fan of watching Cyborg perform. I'm really hoping that she could rewind the clock here and get a knockout. It would be awesome to watch, and it's going to be a tough task for her. She's a +112 underdog on BetUS. I think that she is live to win this fight. It's a close fight. It's a tough fight. I don't want to completely overlook Pacheco. I don't want you guys to think that I'm thinking this is going to be a walk in the park, but I'm going to side with Cyborg here. And I think that maybe she can get a knockout. She's always live to get a knockout, but even if it goes to the judge's scorecard, she can land some damaging strikes and get the better of this fight. Here we go. This is what we all came here for, right? We want to see the return of the former UFC champion, Francis Ngannou, to the MMA cage. He's making his PFL debut here. He's now 38 years old. He's coming off a brutal KO loss to Anthony Joshua over on the boxing scene. He's now taking on Renan Ferreira, who's a mammoth of a fighter. He's 6'8" with an 85-inch wingspan. Okay, he's the larger fighter here. That's not typically the case. When Francis Ngannou is stepping into the cage, he is usually the fighter that is much larger, even in this heavyweight division. So Renan Ferreira is a mammoth fighter who has 10 knockouts out of his 13 victories. He's actually quite quick with his striking. Okay, he's a real threat to Francis. If you think this is just some layup fight for Francis as he returns to the PFL because they want to push him up, you know, they gave him a lot of money. It's not really the case. They're giving him a fighter here who's a legitimate threat. He's coming off that Ryan Bader knockout where he finished him up within just 21 seconds. Before that, he knocked out Dennis Goltsov, who's a good fighter, knocked him out there in the second round, finished Maurice Green, the former UFC fighter, a lower level fighter that frequently trains with John Jones and whatnot, but he's not really on the level. And he did what he should have did against him. He smashed him in the first round. Before that, had a knockout against Matthias Shuffle, a fighter that we saw fight on Dana White's Contender Series, dating back all the way to a first round knockout loss to Ante there. So you got to keep an eye on that because Francis obviously as much of a threat to knock you out as much as anybody in the sport of MMA. If not, he's at the top of the list. So he has been knocked out before in the first round, has Ferreira. which we already knew that that's a likely possibility regardless, but we've seen him finish like that. I do want to note, he was also knocked out by Brett Martin over in LFA. And I also want to note there was a controversial ending to that Fabricio Verdum fight. Now you see it says not confirmed. It was a no contest or whatnot, but he finished Fabricio Verdum up on the mat, was raining down some nasty ground and pound as he was locked in that triangle. He kind of did tap though, but I'll say this. He did like a little tap, but he instantly went into landing strikes. And Fabricio Verdum didn't let go when the tap went on. He kind of let go after he started getting smashed in the head. So that was kind of weird there because it's like he really did rightfully get finished, but then maybe the fight should have just been stopped as soon as he tapped, but it was like one little tap. But that was a controversial finish there against Verdum. But I'm letting you know, he was raining down some nasty ground and pound. He has serious power even down on the mat. He was submitted by Vinicius Mojera, former UFC fighter, lower level fighter that never could cut it, but he submitted Ferreira there in the first round. And so, you know, you take a look at the losses, a lot of finishes, right? 3 finishing losses there for Ferreira. He got knocked out twice and submitted. We're not worried about the sub. We're worried about the KO. But guess where I'm going with this, guys? I'm going to do it. Some of you guys may have seen it coming. Some of you guys are going to get caught off guard right here. I'm not taking Francis Ngannou to get the W here. I have some serious concerns with the damage that he just took against Anthony Joshua. If you've guys seen him talk about what happened in that fight, he was really off his rocker even going into the match. But when you hear the way that he described about how he felt when he was in the ring that day, I think you really got to be worried about his mental. And that was even before he took the knockout. Now, after he took that knockout, I'm really wondering where he's mentally going to be when he is in the cage for the first time in about almost 3 years at this point in time, right? He hasn't been in there in forever. And no, boxing's different than MMA. And Francis Ngannou's been training a lot of boxing, and he's used to having those bigger gloves. And, you know, this is going to be different, man. When you have a guy like Ferreira with these small gloves on that's coming lightning fast at you, it will just take one shot to put you out. Now, of course, Francis is extremely live to get his own knockout. It's very likely. I see either man getting the knockout, but I do see a knockout taking place in this fight. I say they clash and somebody gets put flat out. And I'm going to say that Ferreira is the fighter that gets the knockout victory here. My gut is really telling me that that's the case, and I'm going to stick with it. I like the youth that Renan has going into this fight. I think that he's just a little bit more durable going into this fight right now. With Francis Ngannou is just, I think that something may put him out here, and he just has so many distractions going on outside the cage, which you guys know, some personal issues that he's had as well. And I don't know. I think that this is an upset spot. And we take a look at the betting line where Francis Ngannou, once upon a time, was a minus 310 favorite. And coincidentally, you see action coming in on Ferreira. He's now minus 240. Francis Ngannou is now a minus 240 as Ferreira is now a plus 170. He used to be a plus 205. So a lot of action coming in on Ferreira. People seeing what I'm seeing here. I think that this is a much closer fight, and people aren't really buying into the name value of a Francis Ngannou, who's a big star in the sport, and people aren't buying into that. People understand how dangerous Ferreira is, and this fight should be closer to a 50-50, guys. I'm telling you right now. So that's a bargain line right there, and I'm going to say Ferreira shocks the world and gets that knockout. So remember, I told you guys that. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. I appreciate you guys sticking it through with me here. I've been on the mic all day. I already recorded UFC 308, and I'm going to start editing and putting that up here. If you're new to the channel, if you're just catching up this PFL video, you're really going to like that UFC 308 breakdown. That was when I put a lot of energy and effort into grinding over here. So I hope you guys appreciate some of the work that I'm putting in. If you could hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, catch me on my social media. Really appreciate you guys, man. I really do this, man. I really do this. Some of you guys don't really see what it takes behind the scenes. I know some people try to dabble with this, and it's a lot more than what some of you guys think. I'll tell you that much. So I appreciate you guys a lot for sticking it with me here. And we got a lot of action set to take place over the next week or two, and we're going to be hitting. Telling you guys right now, stay up to date with me on IG. We're going to be hitting. I hope you guys capitalize and hit on this card. Give me your thoughts below. Hit the comment section of give me your thoughts. What bets do you like for this card, and what are you guys thinking? Signing out. Teller.
The teller.